What's going on, everyone? Hope you're all doing splendid. I told you I was going to do a video for everybody on blood types, and I figured, well, let me just take it one step further. Well, maybe not one step, maybe a giant leap further into the abyss of absolute insanity and anarchy of the mind. And this will be just a little bit of a preview because I want to really tie these things together perfectly in my mind so that I can communicate it properly. But I think that people might be able to put it all together for themselves. I mean, I see how it is. It makes sense to me. I just want to make sure I can deliver the message properly. But I think you'll be able to do it for yourself if I just give you a couple keys and clues and into what this thought is, what this larger idea is. Let's start here. Okay, I've been explaining to people about spherocytes and erythrocytes. So what you have is a normal red blood cell and a spherocyte. Okay, one looks flat and it's shaped like a disc. Okay, and that would be a normal one. And I was explaining to people about why blood cells become spherocytes, because there's a dilemma with the membrane, and there's a density inside of the cell that happens. And I was talking about plasma as well, and this gets into the human body and suggesting cleanliness of blood being shaped like UFOs, and what blood is as a time travel device. And I don't want to go too. I've already kind of expressed a little bit of that in my earlier videos, and I'm going to weave this all together in another video. But hopefully you can see where this is all going. So I'm going to connect that with what you'd call somewhere around 1944. Okay, right in that area, you're going to find a lot of interesting things that happened in the world, especially the U.S. The Philadelphia experiment, the RH factor in blood came about. So the rhesus monkey. So what we're called, there's old world monkeys and new world monkeys. We can link that into Space Odyssey, the idea of like monkeys going to the moon, this kind of thing, and what time travel is, what spaceships are, and the shape of them in consideration to the blood. Now, when we look at blood, we have to know about the blood types. There's many, many, many blood types. It's said there's, 35 now, but I would say 36 because they don't include Rh null. But then if we start with right at the beginning, there was the four types: A, B, O, and AB. So there was four types. And then they found the Rh factor, meaning the monkey factor. And so somebody might have been monkeying around with the blood if we get into the science community, or whether it was intergalactic or it was other beings weaving DNA together, or it had something to do with our diet and what we were consuming, which gets into like diet meaning deity, and expressing some ideas about blood, and here's my idea that's a little larger, and that we can change our blood type. Because what blood types have to do with is you have antigens, and you have, so the word anti obviously means like it means no, it means like the opposite of something, pro something and then anti something. So people love their green tea because it's antioxidant. And I've made people well aware that it's not a health drink for most people, because most people have too much iron in their blood. And so that what they want is an oxidant to remove that from their blood. But people keep continually saying, I need an anti-something, an antioxidant. But that's just not true. And when we get into what iron is and why iron isn't a good material, talk about conductive materials, magnetic materials, and we can get into like movement and energetics on this planet, as well as time travel and spacecrafts. We have to understand electricity and magnetism. and the human body is electromagnetic. Let's remember this. So getting back to these blood types and the Philadelphia experiment, the rhesus monkey gene, the the type of blood cells you have in you, and as we break those down, I was getting into, there's 8 types. The original, there's the original was, I would assume, just the O. That was all there was, O, and then it got broke down into the A and the B. And so the O became the O and the A and the B, and then the A and the B bound together, and so you have the O, the A, the B, and the A and the B, and then you have the RH factor, which happened in right around 1944. So there's a lot of things going on there that I'll explain, and that give you 8. But then they found what is called golden blood. Interestingly enough, that's what they name it, golden blood. And so I was explaining to you antigens and antibodies. Okay, an antigen means anti-generation. Antibody means no body. So to be an antibody. And so the antibodies exist inside of a cell, and the antigens exist on the outside of the cell. And what antibodies do, and this has to do with proteins and carbohydrates as well, and I'll get into all of that, but what antibodies do is they attack antigens. Interestingly enough, your blood is considered whether or not you have antibodies and antigens. And so as you study and understand what antigens do and what antibodies do, antibodies are the things that are attacking and getting rid of the antigens. So curious enough that people would have that stuck to their blood on the outside and stuff on the inside. And it's interesting that we're stuck with a lot of needles that inject things into us. I mean, I'm not going to get into that whole thing right now, what it is, what it might be, as well as like allergy shots and things like this, and different types of things that get stuck to different parts of the blood, because what we've been told is there's a lot more blood types than just the 8. And then I was explaining to you a 9th blood type, and I'll get to that in a second. And it has to do with different factors of antigens on the blood. And so how do those things get there? Well, maybe it has something to do with our diet. And can we change our blood type and get rid of those antigens? Maybe we don't need antigens on our body, on our blood, because this goes into my other work that I was explaining to people about. There's the essential 4 elements that are supposed to be moved inside and out of your blood cells, which are called your sodium. Well, you have your daytime and nighttime elements, and it's something pushed and pulled, that it seems to be pushed and pulled by the sun and the moon. And the 4 elements are, for the evening, it should be forced into the blood cell. It should be magnesium and potassium, and a good way to remember that is Mg and K, which is magic. And so nighttime has to do with what's magic. And so those should be pushed into the blood cell. And in the daytime, what should be in there is calcium and sodium. But most people, their blood is probably more spherocyte. They have more spherocytes, meaning there's a pressure inside of their blood, which is that. Now this is just an idea that it's the sodium and calcium that's stuck inside of there, and then it can't be released and pushed outside of it, and to be exchanged with the nighttime substances. Now this is an idea, but we certainly can tell that spherocytis is what looks like a UFO blown up into a sphere, and it causes a lot of, well, look at the size difference. And if you look into what happens in what's called spherocytis, or spherocytosis, it's more of a disease of the blood. That's what they call it. And in fact, when you look into what the RH originally, like right now we look at the RH and they say, oh, that's just another factor in the blood. Well, RH was in 1944. It was called the disease of the blood. It was considered a disease. So when you look at the RH factor, what you're looking at is the antigens on the outside of the blood cell. And so now let's get back to this golden blood. Golden blood is, now if I really get into golden blood, what color is the plasma? What color is your urine? What is plasma ultrafiltrate. It's called your urine. It's what surrounds you when you're in your mother's womb. Now, if we call it golden blood, what do we know about that? It's Rh null. It literally means, see, when you say Rh negative or Rh positive means there's a lot of antigens. And so Rh negative means there's only certain types of antigens which they don't necessarily qualify for, because there's, like I said, there's 35 different blood types, but I would say it's 36 because of the Rh null. So, and that actually, instead of being 8 blood types, that gives you 9, and both of those things are completions of numerical completions. 36 is 9. 9 is, there's an interesting thing to the number 9 for people that get into that. But I don't want to. I'm not basing this whole entire algorithm in theory and idea, and I think it's well beyond a theory. I think it's closer to a truth about something about time travel and what it has to do with your blood. So that golden blood doesn't have any antigens on it. And so what they thought is like, oh, how could that survive? Well, obviously that would be the healthiest thing on the planet, wouldn't it? If there's no anti-generation, anything on the outside of the cell to take away from the, like, if the job of the antibody, which is to destroy the antigen, well, if it doesn't have anything to do, then that should be a very healthy cell, and it would never have a sphere type shape. It would always be a normal blood cell, which looks like what is called a UFO or a spacecraft. And then if we get into a lot of other people's work about what is implosion versus explosion, what they say is the way you use magnets and electricity. Okay, so magnets are implosive and electricity is explosive. So a masculine and feminine, this is why a male explodes with energy and a woman is a magnet or pulls in. It implodes energy. A woman is a magnet. This is why it's Magdalene. It's magnesium is something that we're missing. Okay, it's called magic. It's everything about the mama, which is the word comes out as what we see as magician, and the evening, and eve, and nighttime. So I don't want to get into all the etymology and confuse people, but it's held inside of the words and it shows you something. So this feminine thing is actually magnetic and implosive, where a masculine is, I mean, this is very easy to see, is explosive and electric. And if you look at how vortexes are made and how seeds are made, the way a seed creates a tree is it implodes. It doesn't explode, it implodes. Implosive force is the result is creating an order. It's creating what you see as an orange on a tree. If you were to explode a seed, you would get no order out of it. If you were to implode a seed, what you would get is whatever was inside of that seed in perfect harmony. Meaning, if the seed was a walnut tree, you would get walnuts on a tree. And if it was a lemon tree, you would get lemons. That's what would happen. So now if we look at our blood vessels in the same way, and we consider why it's said that UFOs do what they do, and why we can't seem to move anything with these big metal spacecrafts, because they're moving in a different way. They're using the energetic principles of explosion. And so the way they say, oh, they're anti-gravity aircraft. So if it's anti-gravity, it's not necessarily anti-gravity. It's actually just using gravity in the right way. I mean, and this has to do with the blood and implosive force rather than explosive force. So, weaving this all together as a little bit of without delivering a 2-hour presentation on why this seems to be almost certainly how it works, I think everybody should probably be able to weave together what I just said into understanding the Rh factor in blood, what Philadelphia experiments were about time travel. When did Roswell happen? I mean, spacecrafts and the little alien men. I mean, whether or not that really happened, whatever it might have been. whether if it's just a story or not. And as I always like to try to put people back to this, it's always part of your, it's in your bloodline. It's part of your nobility. It's part of your godliness. It's part of your royal nature. It's part of your cosmic heritage, whatever you want to call it. But if we're talking about the power of the blood, and getting back to this golden blood, could you give yourself, could you clean your blood? Could your blood become so pure that you removed all of the anti-gens off of your blood, meaning anti-generations? Could you have progens on your blood? That would be the opposite, right? A progeneration. Why is everything so anti in this nature? What about a progenerator for your blood? You know, I see, again, this has to do with the anti, the anti outside of the blood, antigens and antibodies. What if it was pro-body and progens? See that it just changes the language a little bit, and it changes the properties and the values of what these things are supposed to do. So what is it? Again, now getting a little bit deeper here, just to give you a couple more tidbits of information to consider. And it's Orion, and it's the word Orin, and the, urea, and urine, because urine is Orin, and Orin has to do with Orion, and Orion's belt. So, I mean, there's some really interesting connections that you can make. And these aren't just fanciful connections, because I can, we can show what urine is and what it contains. It's sterile. It's a plasma ultrafiltrate. It has so many healthy things in it for the body. It's all of your stem cells. It's basically your plasma, okay? And if we look at the gold blood, the gold plasma, what should be surrounding you, has to do with how healthy your blood is. And what is on the outside of the blood? Well, they're the antigens, right? So this shows you why, like, if you get bit by a snake, and what a snake does, it makes your blood, like, it'll make your blood clot. What is it doing? What is in the blood? What is in the snake bite? Okay, now if you take, okay, now it's your blood is filtered through, your kidneys almost immediately. I think it's like every 3 minutes. And so now it filters through your kidneys. Now it's in your bladder, and you urinate, and now it has they would call it antibodies for it, but it's actually in the poison is the panacea. Once it flips through your kidneys, which is inverting the blood plasma and giving you the solution to that on the other side of it. And if you were to take that piss and drink it, or put it under your tongue, your blood won't clot. So especially if you drink it, because now what you've done is you've given the remedy to what the coagulating agent was, which was the blood thickening agent of an antigen. And so you'd have, they say, the antibody for it. Well, I mean, sure. So now you have the antibodies. So it's what was outside of the blood cell that was now inside of the blood cell. I mean, either I'm a lunatic, crazy person, or somehow I can sit down and look at this, and because of all of the other information I have in my head, in the matter of like 24 hours, figure out how UFOs, Philadelphia experiment, and your blood connects to snake bites. And but see, here's what I assume, though. I assume everybody's mind works just like mine, and if I just give you a couple key things in the storyline, and kind of weave it together, I think it will make sense for everyone. And this always gets back to, hey, okay, whether or not any of this is true, what I can almost certainly say is that there is some sort of solvent or solution for people's health problems and disease within themselves and within this information. Whether or not you think there's some crazy connection to time travel and to say levitation, or to gravity or to spaceships and aliens and monkeys and Philadelphia. Like, whether or not you think that is all connected, what you can be certain of is, yeah, we can make ourselves healthier by using urine, by using certain types of clean substances, distilled waters and fruit juices and things. And there's a lot of wisdom in that. And there's ways, and then I would even step it up and say, hey, this is maybe never be verifiable, because there might not be any money in it for people, but maybe there will be money in it. Who knows? That maybe somebody can figure out how to make some money off of this. I hope they do. And if you want to share that with me, that'd be cool too. But the idea that we can change our own blood type, because if you can remove the antigens off of you, you would literally change your blood type. You would become from what it would be a rhesus monkey. Now connect that rhesus monkey to, like, what did they say about AIDS or HIV, right? They said it came from monkeys in Africa. Well, that's weird. Why is always the monkey, right? The monkey on the moon with the 2001 Space Odyssey, and we call it a monkey, right? And what's that? Let me just give you a little clue into the weird mind of Zen. Okay, so monkey is the word moon key. It's the key to the moon. So why is there always the connection to the moon key? The monkey. And we call it monkey mind, Hanuman, and all this, but that's just another story to tell. So within this, the suggestion is that the antigens on the outside of your blood can be all removed and cleaned. You can clean the outside of your blood, because what's outside of your blood is the plasma, and the cleaner the plasma, the easier job that the antibodies will have inside of your blood to exchange with what's outside and not destroy, but to remove all of the things that shouldn't be on top of your cellular system, which should look like a flying saucer, like a disc shape, but because there's been so much pressure built up, and you look into what spherocytis is in a couple of my earlier videos that I did on spherocytis and erythrocytis, is that their pressure has built up where the information or fluid transmutation, the transition from what's outside to inside can't take place, because there's too much pressure inside of the cell, and it needs to release the pressure from the cell to actually become a normal sized a blood cell, which looks like a UFO, to be able to move through veins easier. And I mean, if we look at veins then I'll get into all the weirdest stuff, but like the tubes, I did earlier work that I've taken down on time tubes, and I tried to explain what tubes of time were and where we exist. So yeah, hopefully this bare minimum, just here, the easiest thing for people: clean up your blood and start removing the thickening agents. What would thicken something up? White flowers? I mean, that's gonna thicken up anything. Maybe you want to remove that from your diet, from your deity, from what you consume into your temple. It's your God. Your God is what you eat, your food, your deity, right? And start putting things in that are fluid, that will release pressure from your blood cells and what's inside of your plasma. What do you want removing through your plasma? Thinner, more viscous substances, distilled waters, juices, and if you're so brave and you want to do the research, it's called Shivambu. And I mean, you can look into if anybody's really interested in the words and how that all works. Shiva's a destroyer. It's one of the two goddess creatures in folklore of India. It's Shakti and Shiva. And there's really simple ways of helping to improve your health and diseased situation, to cause more ease in your life. And you can a lot of ways to do this. I mean, can we all produce golden blood? Could you have the dirtiest of blood? I don't know what that would be called. I don't know, because like I said, they've come up with more classifications, and the classifications work based upon proteins and carbohydrates, and the antigens on the blood, and they only measure for the first few, which go through the A B C D A B C D and E's, right? And after that, it's kind of like just secondary. Well, do they have these markers? If they have these markers, then it's a positive. If they don't have these markers, it's a negative. But they could have a bunch of other things which are all secondary markers, but it would make the blood characterizing, it would be too difficult. We can't have, if you want to have a blood transfusion, we can't have, okay, all of these markers. Okay, you got to have such a specific blood type. Okay, wait, can their immune system, the immunoglobulins, can their immune system actually fight off some of these things? So you can take into your body, if you have a strong enough immune system and a strong enough antibody system, that it would destroy the antigens. And if you look into like how blood is transmuted and transfused to people, is the antibody strong enough? And so this is why those secondary things don't really matter, and the only things that kind of matter are the original 8 blood types. But then I would even suggest that it's just antigen, and it's just antibodies. That's all there really is to it. How clean is the blood? You could have really, really, really clean blood and be able to give it to anybody. You would basically have only, and then we get into what the O blood is, and I mean, there's a lot of really interesting things here. But hopefully this was a fun little story for everybody. Hopefully you can see kind of where I was taking it. I think I really just kind of told you the whole story. I don't know how much more I can clean this up for people and make a few more connections. I mean, I'd spell it all out with the UFOs and spell it all out with the time travel and Philadelphia experiments, but I think I kind of just did. So as always, hopefully you enjoyed the story, and stay awesome, do cool things, enjoy yourselves, inspire your neighbors, inspire the world, and if you can't do that, at least inspire yourself, and we will talk very soon.